Alternate gospel reading for today for this Honduras Sunday is from Matthew, the 25th chapter. Jesus said, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison or visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated.
Make sure that's on. Good morning. And I bring you greetings from your Honduras mission team and our friends in Honduras. This morning, I'd like to give you just a brief update on what we've been doing in Honduras. Our purpose this morning is really to try to entice as many of you as possible to join us. We're going again in late June and the week between June and July, and we would love to have as many of you as possible come with us. Some of our highlights from this last year's trip, approximately 450 children have shoes on their feet, some of them for the very first time. Truly amazing. Denny and Yolanda's nutrition station, we completely repainted the inside of that for them. We completed our 10th Bible scene at Kids Ark International. We had approximately 225 children come to camp for a day of Christian fellowship and fun and just a good time. Denny from the nutrition station, we've been working with for 2 years. He's the gentleman I think I shared with you in the past. He was trying to get to this country. He either fell or was pushed out of a train, and the train ran over his legs, and he was a double amputee. And he was struggling so hard with his prosthetics that did not fit him properly. And this year we were able to complete that project, and he has new legs, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on here. The other amazing thing is we brought 450 shoes down to Honduras, and the first night we're there, we're sitting around the bonfire, and Greg and I are talking to this gentleman who we had just met. He was a missionary that spends 18 months at a time in Honduras, and we were asking him if he knew of any villages that were poor that we could go and distribute these shoes to, and he obviously helped us a great deal. The amazing thing is we have 450 pair of shoes, and this man's name that was helping us, his name is Walker. Is that a God thing or what? I mean, it's just amazing. So those were our highlights from this year. The people in front here are kind of a combination of this year's team and some teams of the past, because we want to share with you what it's like to go there, what it's like to go there with a child or a grandchild. And I'd like to just introduce two people. Everybody else you probably know. Ariana, would you just raise your hand? Ariana's part of the Sturwalt family. She's amazing. Totally amazing. She goes a quarter of the way around the world with a bunch of geriatrics that she's never met before. And I want to just read you if I can. I sent her grandmother, I had to put my life on the line that I would watch out for her and take care of her. It was a real job, let me tell you. I sent her grandmother a note telling her grandmother how much fun she was to have there, and her grandmother responded with this: "Thank you, Don. She is a special young lady, and we love her to pieces." And I got to tell you, everybody on that trip loved her to pieces as well. I got to tell one quick little story on her. She's waiting to get admitted to med school, And one day we're in this very, very, very poor community. The children came to us for shoes, and they had mud oozing up between their toes. There's no streets, it's just mud roads. They live in huts that are just mud floors. And she's sitting there putting shoes on this young boy, and the mud is just oozing up. And I'm hoping it's just dirt mud. But I put my hand on her shoulder, and I said, I suppose podiatry is out of the question now. The other person you may not recognize is Lisa. Lisa owns a prosthetic company in Sartell, and we've been working with Lisa for 2 years, and she's donated so much of her time and materials to help Denny be able to get new legs. So what I'd like to do this morning is just have every one of the people sitting up front here just take a minute and talk about what it meant to you to go there. If you went there with a family member, tell us what it was like to take that family member there. Noah, if you want to just talk about what it was like to go with your mom and grandma, that would be awesome as well. So, Chuck, do you have the mic? You want to start? Thank you.
If it's on? Yes, it is. Hi. I was sitting in the congregation one day when Don was talking about recruiting a team to go to Honduras, and I thought, I think I could do this. And I turned to Carla and I said, I will if you'll stay home and take care of the critters. And she said, sure, go ahead. So I did. And I soon realized that God was with me in that decision, because to get 2 weeks off at my job in the busiest time of the year is nigh on to impossible, but I was able to get it off. And so that was the start. And then I started thinking, what am I getting myself into? Well, it wasn't too long into the trip that I realized that it was the right place to be. And flying out of Atlanta, about over half of the people on that plane were going to be in a mission capacity in one way, shape, or form or another. And it's like, whoa, this is huge. When we arrived, it was the kids that were a big deal. And if you'd have told me before I left that I'd be playing soccer with a bunch of 10-year-olds, I'd have said, you're crazy. But there I was on the soccer pitch, and it was incredible. So I was asked if I'd go again. I said, in a heartbeat. So that's where I'm going to be next February.
Hi, I'm Ariana. As Don said, I'm the granddaughter of Rick and Brenda Starwalt, who attend church here. They called me up one morning and said, hey, do you want to go to Honduras? We need to know by noon today. And so I just immediately said yes, jumped in, and had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I can honestly say it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Not only was I able to grow my faith, but I know some of these people are going to talk about what it's like to grow the relationships they already have. But for me, I was able to build a family with all of these people and with the Honduran community, who are the most generous and gracious group of people I've ever met. And it was amazing to see your work make a difference through the laughs and the smiles of the Honduran children, and to see that you really were doing God's work there. So if you're even considering going on a Honduras trip, I say just jump in and do it, because you won't regret it.
The Bible tells us that God created every one of us in His image, and that He loves everyone. And that means I've never looked in a child's eyes in Honduras that wasn't a child that God loved. And that's a neat feeling. And when you see those kids and you feed them and you play with them and you build Bible displays, you realize it makes a difference. But one of the real benefits is the benefit you see in young people from here who go. One of my first experiences with somebody young was with Noah, and it was a great opportunity to see how God impacts the people who go and what a change it makes in their life. And it was a privilege to be on that trip with Noah. But a year ago, Barbara and I had a chance to take our granddaughter with us. And she's special because she was adopted from China. And so even being allowed to take her out of the country was a big deal for us. But having her with us, watching her face paint like 500 kids, and then get involved in telling Bible stories through an interpreter to other kids, and then listening to her talk when she came back about what an impact it had on her and why she wants to go back. And probably the most touching part for us was to watch her in an orphanage, because she came from an orphanage, and to watch her process it and then comment afterwards, how was I so lucky to be picked to have a home in the U.S.?
Hey guys. This all started when I was in 7th grade. I was pretty ungrateful, not gonna lie, back then. And my mom said, "Hey, Noah, do you want to go on this mission trip?" And I said, no right away. And she said, too late, I already got the plane tickets. And I went down there, and I realized one thing: money doesn't buy happiness. And that was the big thing for me. And it was fun going down with Cecil, too. He's quite the character. And made lots of friends down there, still keep in touch with them today. And I remember on the plane ride home, I did not want to leave. I was like bawling my eyes out. You can even ask my mom. I was crying. I did not want to leave that place. And went there the second year with Don. That was an experience with him too. And had a great time down there with him. Still kept in touch with my old friends down there, and it was fun to see them again. So, yeah.
I'm Kelly, and this was my first time going to Kids Ark this summer. I had been to Honduras about 10 years ago, a couple times before, but I went this time with my son, my mother-in-law, and my dad, so that was kind of an experience in and of itself. But I think my son's experience was fairly similar to Noah's, where he wasn't super excited about going, but once he got there, didn't want to leave, to the point where we were joking about him staying there, and he thought that I was serious and could come back in a year and pick him up. So anyway, it was cool just to see the group of kids that were down this summer and how hard they worked and how committed they were to, working with the kids that were there, and just how much fun they had in, I don't know, kind of interesting circumstances as far as not being able to drink the water and being outside all day. And it was an experience to go with a group of kids. It was awesome to see them. And so I think if you have the opportunity to share that with kids, grandkids, even if they're a little bit reluctant, they will come around pretty quickly.
My name is Lisa, and like Don said, I live in St. Cloud Sartell, and I kind of got roped into this by default, but I'm very glad that I went. I do mission work. I've done on humanitarian trips to Bogota, Colombia as well. I work with landmine victims who have lost their limbs through the cartels and the guerrillas in Colombia, and so because I work with Deborah's sister, they came back and told me the story about Denny, and so I've been doing stuff with him remotely for 2 years now. I didn't believe it's been that long. And I got the generous invitation from Don. He's like, "Do you want to go with us this time and meet him?" And I'm like, well, yeah, that's not even a question. I'm there. So without getting into it too much, because I've only got a minute, I'm happy to talk with anyone during pancake breakfast about what I do. But to go down there and see how truly they affect the kids in their area. 80% of the children that they feed, they told me, are orphans, and just makes you realize what their society is like there. Very difficult, very difficult. I'm going to stop now.
I'm Carol. Gary and I have gone to Honduras. I think this past year was our 4th time there. It's very rewarding for us. And if we make an impact, it's a good thing. But it's mainly the impact that we get out of it. The most humbling, the most meaningful thing for us both, I think, this year was the shoes. Fitting the shoes, having those little feet in our hands, and very, very humbling, very special. And neither of us are very good at our Spanish, but we try to communicate the best we can, and tickling little toes here and there, and we got a lot of smiles, and a lot of good things came out of that. So, and if you ever think, well, what am I going to do there? You always come up with there's something that everyone can do. Whether it's working at the camp, there's always a few days where kids come to the camp, and there's just tons of things that all of us can do there to help the kids have a good time. Or when we go out into the communities, it just happens. You're a little uptight about it, and I tell you, it just happens. You start, and you don't need to speak Spanish. It works. Helps, but you don't have to. So I really do encourage you, if you're thinking at all about it, to give it a try.
The last person you're going to hear from is my granddaughter Paige, who went with us in July of last year. Paige and I always have had a wonderful relationship, but I have to tell you, after spending 10 days in Honduras, it's much deeper than it was before. And you have to excuse the quality of the video. It was taken on an iPhone, and when you switch it over to the computer and blow it up, it's going to be fuzzy, but go ahead, if you would.
Hi, my name is Paige Hockstetter. My grandparents are down in Circle, so hi guys. I want to talk a little bit about my experience in Honduras. I just wanted to say how grateful I am that I was able to be a part of this mission trip. It impacted my life in so many ways, but probably the most important way and like what I took away from it the most was the fact that no matter what language you speak or where you're from, that you're able to just to develop a super strong connection and a bond, and just a super deep trust that I just feel so fortunate that I was able to experience, and it just still amazes me today and just has really changed how I look at the world and people in general. I just want to say thank you again for letting me be a part of this. I really would like to go back sometime soon. I think everyone should go. I also included some pictures for you guys to look at, so thank you and enjoy.
Am I on? Okay. In the essence of time, I'd ask the congregation to send me some questions on thoughts or fears of why maybe they have held back from going on a mission trip with us. Instead of answering them here during the pancake breakfast, the team is going to mingle with the different tables. Just go ahead and ask whatever questions you have. In closing, I want to start to look to the future. We've been going to Kids Ark for 10 years, and we've been building these beautiful Bible scenes that you've seen up on the screen. Salem Lutheran Church in Deerwood, Minnesota, has built 10 of the 12 Bible scenes that are there. They're absolutely amazingly beautiful. But I think it's time to maybe look forward to doing something different. And I'd like to put together a steering committee of anybody that's been to Honduras or anybody that's thinking about maybe going to help us look at things that we can do to better help the families and the people of Honduras. And with that, I'm just going to ask you again to please consider going, and please do not leave church without having pancakes. Thank you so much.